Thank you for joining us today on the Link Up. And we just had an opportunity to, spend some time with someone who has survived COVID. And you've seen and heard, what it has done to him personally. But COVID is going to have so many ramifications around the country, the world. One being food security. And today's theme on the Link Up, Eat What We Grow, is an interesting one. It's, I think, reminiscent of Carmita Fraser, may she rest in peace, who always talked about food coming first and how right she was all those decades ago. Food security is defined by the United Nations Committee on World Food Security, and it means that all people at all times have physical, social, and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food that meets their food preferences and dietary needs for an active and healthy life. So that's an interesting definition of food security. And on April the 1st this year, the American Institute for Cooperation on Agriculture, ICA, established a Food Security Advisory Council for the Americas. One of the seven leading professionals chosen was Barbados's Dr. Chelston Brathwaite, who's a former Director General of ICA. And I would like to say thank you to him because he's going to be joining us shortly. But also joining him on the link up today is one of the most passionate people I know on agriculture, Mrs. Ina Harvey. And I would like to welcome Ina to today's link up. Good morning and welcome, Ina.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes. Oh, there
Yes.
you are.
Good
Hi.
morning. Morning, Peter. Morning,
Nice,
everyone.
nice to see you this morning.
Nice to see you too.
Um,
Nice to see you too.
all's well, I hope.
All is well, thank God. All is well. And with you too?
Thank God. Yes, thank
Mm-hmm.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we can't complain and we just give thanks.
That's
You
right.
heard the
That's right.
definition, you heard the definition I shared just now on
Mm-hmm.
food security. And I thought, well, it's all well and good to talk about all people at all times, but there's so many factors which can make that food insecurity the obverse. So what are your thoughts, your personal thoughts, knowing how we are within the Caribbean? What are your thoughts on food security? What does it mean to you?
Okay. For me, food security is having good, healthy food. For me, my family, my loved ones, for the whole community of Barbados and the wider region. And the issue of food security has become difficult because I also wear a hat as the vice president of the Heart and Stroke Foundation. And I know how our bad habits with respect to eating and nutrition are affecting our disease status. We all know what's happening with our chronic diseases and how those persons who have underlying conditions are even suffering more with this COVID pandemic. So for me, food security is at the heart of everything. And for all the grief and ugliness that the pandemic has brought about, I think it has made us register in our hearts and souls that food is important, that food is basic, that our agricultural sector has to be repositioned as key in the economy, not only for food security, but as a key economic driver because the linkage effects right down the line, right down to our farmers, everybody in that food supply chain are so tremendous. It has made us sit back and think, yes, no, we have to bring our agriculture back to where it was and back to where it should be. Food
Thank you,
security,
Ina.
all people at all times, is difficult. It's difficult because we know that they are vulnerable, they are poor. Our transportation systems, our delivery systems are not efficient. and the gaps are showing up. The gaps are really showing up.
Thank, thank you, Ina. And I think it is a perfect opportunity to welcome Dr. Brathwaite in on the link up. Good morning, sir. Nice to see you.
Morning. Good morning to all.
Good morning.
Morning, morning,
Pleased
Good
to
Pastor.
be here.
morning.
Good morning.
Excellent. Excellent. So I asked Ina Harvey about her idea about food security, Dr. Brathwaite. Can I get your thoughts on it? Just your overall definition. What does it mean to you?
My overall definition would be having sufficient food to live a good life, being able to access food of quality that is good for you, and being able to live a happy life on the basis of what you eat, because to a large extent, what you eat is going to determine who you are in terms of your health status. And I think for our countries, it is not that we can produce all that we need. As a matter of fact, no country in the world produces all the food that it needs. But producing as much as you can within the context of your available resources, those resources being land, technology, finance, investment, to produce as much as you can of your food needs with the resources that you have. To me, that is a very important part of food security.
When I was reading on it, because I had my own personal thoughts, but I also wanted to see what the ideas were behind it. They mentioned, I think, something like four components of food security. They mentioned availability, they mentioned access, utilization, but then they also mentioned stability. I got the first three, I could understand, but I wasn't quite sure where stability came into it. I don't know if either one of you can help me on that one.
If I may, I think stability has to do with the continuity of supply. In other words, you do not wish a situation where you are food secure today and tomorrow you don't know where your food is coming from. So stability has to do with ensuring a continuity in your supply of food so that even when the dry season come and you cannot be as efficient as you were in producing the food in the wet season, you have a base and you have a system in place that makes it possible to have a continuous supply of food. One of the things that we must bear in mind, of course, which is basic to all of us, that you have to eat every day. So food is not something that is discontinuous. You have to eat every day. Because you have to eat every day, your supply of food must be stable and you must know where it's coming from. From a country point of view, if you are not capable of producing that stability in your food supply, you must know where you're going to get it from. And the country then has a
I see.
responsibility, either through imports or using technology or food banks or whatever system you may use to make sure that there's a continuous supply of good food for your population.
Right.
If
And
I
Ina
may,
did mention, yes, certainly go ahead, Ina.
yeah, I think stability also has a relationship to issues of national security. If you are dependent on others for your food and on international transport and storage and delivery systems, you're not secure. And it's national security we're looking at. We're also looking at national security from the point of view of food fraud. And there are many who would take advantage of this situation and export food that is not good for consumption, that is not meeting international food standards. So issues of traceability and sanitary and phytosanitary standards relate to food stability. Stability also relates, I think, to the policies and the institutional framework in place to ensure that we have a stable and sustainable supply of food. Issues of land use, issues of available water for agriculture. When you look through many of these studies that are done on water for Barbados, you don't see specific chapters that talk about water for agriculture. And this is a huge problem for all of our farmers, our landowners. They don't have water. Without water, you can't plant trees, you can't plant crops, you can't
Right.
irrigate, you can't feed your livestock, etc., etc. So stability relates to all of these things.
I find you mentioned security, because I think that COVID has definitely brought that into top of mind. Dr. Brathwaite, you had mentioned in one of your papers about countries hoarding their products, and we import from them, and they might start to hold their products back for their own people. And that could create a problem for us in terms of our food security, because our import bill is so high.
Well, I can't agree with you more. This is a very important issue. In the Caribbean, we import in most countries between 60 and 80% of our food. A significant amount of it is imported from the United States of America. In a situation where plants that are involved in the processing of food in that country are under very severe restrictions in terms of the working of their populations, the fact that several of the people who are involved in these plants have been found to be infected with the virus, and as a result, some of the plants have closed. That implies a threat to our own food security because we import a significant amount of food from that country. But it also implies uh, a threat to us in terms of our ability to continue to guarantee a sufficient supply of food to which we have become accustomed. It also has implications for our ability to purchase that food. In the past, we have used the income which we obtain from tourism to buy our food. In circumstances where your tourism income has declined by the significant amounts that we have seen in this country, almost to zero, you now do not have that money to buy food. So this is a serious threat to your food security. The food may be available, but you do not have the money to purchase it. So this is a question now of access. In addition, several countries, Kazakhstan and some of the other countries in the East, have already closed their borders that in their food to anyone else, that the food will be for national consumption. Should more countries in the world take that particular stand, countries such as ours that are food insecure will face serious problems of food insecurity because food may not be available.
Okay, we're just going to stick a pin there. We're going to come back to that, because I think that that is something that we have to all be aware of when we see ourselves as consumers. And I'm not sure if we really do think of ourselves as being consumers of imported goods, because we don't give a thought sometimes to where those goods are coming from. So we're going to just take a quick break, and we're going to come back with a link up and eat what we grow. If you're now joining us, you're watching the Link Up, and today our theme is Eat What We Grow. And just before we went to break, Dr. Brathwaite made some comments about the food insecurity as opposed to food security. And Ina, you mentioned how dependent we are on processed foods as opposed to eating our own indigenous ground provisions and that sort of thing. When we speak of the food import bill of the Caribbean being something like 5 billion US dollars, what products make up that import bill? What is it that we are consuming that we have to import from overseas?
A lot
One
of
of
flour,
the
oil, and
most,
sugar, Peter. Sorry, Charles.
yes, one of the most important things that we import is a significant amount of carbohydrate, a large amount of wheat
Ah,
for making
Mhm.
bread, a significant amount of cereals, cornflakes, potatoes, beef, wines, fruits, and vegetables. All the
Fruits and
categories
vegetables.
are included in that large food import bill. And what is unfortunate about us is that these can be replaced by other products in the Caribbean. We should be producing much more of our fruits and vegetables. But we can also replace some of that wheat with products like cassava, yams, sweet potatoes. We can produce sweet potato flour. We can produce breadfruit flour. These are things that can be incorporated in the making of bread and cakes. And the product of that is very nutritious and very delicious. So we've got to look at the possibility in a period of food insecurity at changing our consumption patterns so that we can eat more of what we grow, which they have shown without a doubt by the medical profession that these complex carbohydrates are better for us than the other products that we import, which are normally processed goods. For example, you know, we
So,
have high levels
sorry.
of obesity and diabetes. The products that we have that we produce here in Barbados are good for our health in terms of complex carbohydrates, which will help our health in this regard.
Okay, so I was going to ask which comes first, the chicken or the egg, that we are importing products because the consumers are not buying their own, or are we buying our own because the farmers and so on are not growing what we want to consume? If you're understanding where I'm coming from.
If I may take a stab at it. You expressed surprise, Peter, that we're importing fruits and vegetables. We import $7 million annually in broccoli, $7 million in white potatoes, about $500,000 in onions, another $500,000 in carrots and pumpkins. Some of
Those
these
are
things
things
which
we
we can,
grow.
yes, these are
Things that
things we
we should
grow.
grow.
Things that broccoli, some of these things have temperature requirements which make the growing
Hmm.
season difficult. But every crop has seasonality. And what is a major glaring gap in our food supply system is the absence of processing, especially frozen food chains. We import frozen okra. I saw in a major supermarket here imported frozen okra,
And
and we do
okra
okra
powder.
so well. Yes. So I think that we really need to look at improving the innovations in production so that we can have disease resistant, drought resistant varieties, temperature resistant varieties that we can grow in the cool season, maybe like broccoli, and grow a significant amount so that we can freeze and make it available year round. And then we include in that whole frozen chain all of the other vegetables that we can freeze, frozen root crops, pumpkin, okra, you name it. Have all year round availability of those crops because it is ridiculous that we can grow. And the good news is that the region can supply a whole lot. Jamaica does white potatoes wonderfully. St. Kitts,
Mhm.
onions, white potatoes. We in Barbados produce onions so wonderfully well that we have a season that we have a certain variety can grow now, a certain variety can grow another time. And therefore
I
we
would
will
like
have
to
a
Okay.
add that we should not be importing anything that we can grow. If we
no.
can grow a product in this country, we should not be importing it. If we can grow onions in Barbados, why are we importing onions? There may be
And it comes back to
seasonality challenges,
quality.
and we should manage those challenges. But any crop that we can grow in Barbados, we should not be importing. We should not be using our foreign exchange, which we obtain from tourism, to buy food, which we then take and feed to the tourists. That model of development is totally unsustainable.
We
You
import
know, you were
varieties of
saying
lettuce.
something.
Yeah, we import lettuce, all sorts of lettuce, and we can grow lettuce.
But
And the ministry is
I
doing
would like to
things,
say one thing.
container growing and so on.
I
Go
would
ahead,
like to
Ben.
say
Sorry.
one thing. I would like to congratulate the government on its recent initiative to treat with the challenges of food security. In fact,
Yes.
I would like to go back and say that the Myanmar administration, in establishing a Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, has established in no uncertain way the importance of food security for national development, because food security is the first ministry in the Caribbean that I know that has included food security as an important part of its mission. And the recent initiatives to convert a significant amount of land for producing local crops and treating with some of our great challenges, such as predial larceny, is a clear example of a commitment to doing something very positive about the food security situation of the country. So I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate the government and the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security for the initiatives that are being taken to address the food security system in Barbados. But going further, this has to be a regional issue, and we have to begin to look at food security in the context of the Caribbean region, not only in the context of Barbados, but also in the context of the Caribbean.
Right. As a matter of fact, I think back in February, at one of the meetings of CARICOM, she did highlight that Caribbean states will have to make the necessary changes to ease of doing business so that product integration would be a seamless movement in the region. So I am wondering what is it that makes it uneasy at the moment to do business, especially with agriculture?
Transport,
Well, some of
our
the
transportation
challenges,
into island
one of the
transport is
challenges,
difficult.
transport.
Yep.
One of the challenges is transport. Transportation costs in the Caribbean are very high. In fact, I saw a recent report that said that transportation cost is 30% higher in the Caribbean than it is as compared to the world average. And I believe that we have got to focus on this issue of food security from a regional strategic point of view. And my recommendation is that in the context of COVID and the context of all the work that is being carried out to renegotiate our debt, to renegotiate assistance in the context of the current crisis, that the Caribbean seek to establish a food security fund, a fund that would address the challenges of food security in the Caribbean, not as an island state, but as a region, bringing together the capacities that exist in Guyana, Belize, and Suriname with the needs of all countries to work together in working together to develop a strategic plan for food security in the Caribbean. We cannot continue to spend $6 billion a year on importing food into our countries for products that we can in fact produce.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break here. Yes, Ina, hold your thought. We'll start with you when we come back. Okay, thank you. Okay, I think I got ahead of myself. So Ina, please continue.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Your comment. Yes, my fault.
Let me endorse what Dr. Bradford said about the Ministry of Agriculture's efforts. In fact, the minister has established a task force with some key stakeholders, and ICA is on that task force too, to look at how we, post-COVID, we make agriculture an economic driver for Barbados and the region. So lots of things are happening, driven by the ministry and the private sector. And at the regional level, the good news is that the private sector is coming on board. At the heads of government meeting that took place earlier this year, as you would know, a private sector team has been put together to look at reducing the food import bill in the region by 25%. And they have come up with recommendations. They're looking at the transportation issues. They're looking at specific commodities, the protein commodities, the chicken, our rice, and other key commodities that are traded in the region to see if we can reduce that food import bill. But at the regional level, I also want to make the point too that although the tourism sector is very low at this time, we know our tourism sector is resilient and it will bounce back. And in meetings that I had with the regional tourism sector, They're looking to bounce back in 3 to 4 years, all things considered. And we must use this time to get ready, to make our regional food supply system ready and agile and able to meet the tourism demand as well as our domestic demand. And we must also, within the whole context of agrotourism, change our tourism paradigm and make our communities more involved in tourism in a real way, really make tourism their business and create sites, events, and attractions in our communities so that the tourism dollar really trickles down and we have a more authentic tourism. So we need to use this downtime to make
Right.
ourselves more ready and to improve our regional food supply system. The good news is that CARICOM is on board, regional private sector is on board, and I think this is the time for us to really
It is.
make regional
COVID has
integration a
COVID
reality.
COVID has really brought it into sharp focus. The time has just disappeared from us because I wanted to ask about solutions and how in the post-COVID we would look at countries, if we're supposed to be doing it regionally, not having redundancy so that we don't repeat what each other is producing and then create a problem there. And then bigger countries, by dint of their size, having an impact on smaller countries, all of that sort of thing. So I have a funny feeling that we're going to have
And
to do a
protecting
part
our
two.
local farmers too. Yeah, but those are my
Exactly.
last words. I'll let Dr. Bradford have some last words and see if the time
Yes,
is too
your
short.
last word, sir. You have a minute.
I think we need. I think we need a strategic plan for agriculture in the Caribbean. Since Eric Williams' days, 1975, we've been talking about a Caribbean food plan. And we have talked and talked and talked, but we have not implemented in a strategic way a plan for feeding ourselves. To a large extent, now is the time. In my view, this is the opportunity, this is the moment for us to put in place a strategic plan for making the Caribbean less dependent on our. To a large extent, this is the moment for us to get up and say our sovereignty and our independence must be based partly on our ability to feed ourselves and not be dependent on others. Because when you're dependent on others to feed you, it is very easy for them to manipulate you politically. I believe, therefore, that a serious effort must be made. We must have, for example, an information system in the Caribbean that tells us what is going on in each of the territories in terms of agricultural supply, a regional information system that tells us what is going on in Belize, what's going on in Suriname, how much is available in Dominica, what's available in St. Kitts. And we can bring together supply and demand if we have an information system. Our young people
Thank
who are
you.
being taught in computers and systems and technology, there's a great opportunity to help us to develop such a system. So this is the moment for food security to take center stage in our countries and to make it a reality for the future.
Fantastic. Thank you very much to both of you, Mrs. Ina Harvey and also Dr. Chelston Bradford. And I know that COVID has certainly brought this all into sharp focus right now. And I'm sure that we are going to be stepping into that future a lot quicker than we all thought. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Link
Thanks
Up.
for
Looking
having
forward to
Thank you.
being with you
Thank you
again
for the
Monday
opportunity.
at
us.
11. You're welcome.
Stay
Thank you
safe.
very much.
You're welcome. Stay
Bye.
safe.